Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Wake up because another brand new Abyss 12 just dropped, so you know what that means. Another Abyss 12 video! Woohoo! So we're going to do a quick 4-star only clear of this Abyss 12, as well as a day 1 speed run of the entire Abyss 12 instead of just usually one side that I do. Alright, I hope you like reruns because this Abyss 12 feels a lot like the previous Abyss 12. I gotta be honest, I felt like this one was easier than some of the previous ones, and perhaps that's also largely because of where they put each individual enemy, and that definitely can make a difference due to, you know, the HP increasing as you get later into the Abyss chambers. So in case you didn't see my last one, well, the teams are going to look very, very familiar. And starting off, we have Layla, who has, you know, somewhat of a crit-ish build with just the Favonius sword, as well as the 4-piece tenacity of the Millilith. She's got, oh, I guess she has energy recharge. Interesting. She probably didn't even need energy recharge, but you know what? I guess it didn't really matter in the end. And then up next, we have Collei to apply Dendro. We have the standard Hyper Bloom team for the top half of Abyss 12. Of course, Collei is using very cookie cutter shenanigans. We have energy recharge, Dendro, and crit rate. Constellation 6, talents are whatever. Then we have Kuki Shinobu, who has one role in life, and that is to apply Hyper Bloom to the enemy, and she is where most of the team's damage comes from, probably at least. And finally, we have Xingqiu, the good boy. He is literally just here to apply Hydro for the team, and here indeed you can see his artifacts and stuff. So that is going to be the top half Hyper Bloom team with a Layla involved. And you can also probably replace Layla with someone like Chongyun as a 4-star option, or just other cryo options. And then for the second half, we are of course running an overloaded team. Then we have your typical overloaded Chevreuse, who's sporting the whale weapon skin, but really it is a Favonius lance in disguise. Very deceptive of her to, you know, utilize such underhanded tactics. But she is of course just standard 40k HP build with, you know, some crit rate for the Favonius lance. And then we have a Benny Boy, who he is of course using the Sapwood blade and 4-piece Noblesse Oblige, although I did build him with a bit of crit and stuff because in a team like this, his energy recharge stat doesn't need to be as sky high as usual, because we've got, well, 3 pyro characters, with one of them using Favonius. And oops, actually Roron's not on this team. I figured I'd switch him over to a more free-to-play friendly option. But we have Xiangling next, who is just using the standard cookie cutter the catch build. There's no catch to this build, it is just the catch with you know, typical stuff. And finally, for this team, we also have Fischl, literally the exact same teams that I used for the last Abyss 12, and she's using the stringless as well as the 4-piece, you know, golden troop, constellations, and talents, and so on and so forth. So if we just take a very quick look at this Abyss 12, this one is not, fortunately, as egregious in terms of the ley line disorder. We actually have a cryo damage dealt by all character members will be increased by 75%. So this actually applies to all cryo characters instead of just literally 2 characters that they did. Well, okay, not literally 2, but you know what I mean in the previous Abyss buff. But then we also have for the second half, all party members' Night Soul line damage will be increased by 75%. Of course, these are very massive buffs. And personally, I feel like they probably made Abyss 12 a little bit easier due to, you know, perhaps the other gameplay mode that they added, Stygian Onslaught and stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-star only runs. And starting off for 12-1-1, here we go. We are dealing with the Secret Source Automaton Overseer device, or as I like to call it, the Secret Scam Automaton, especially at least as it was in Stygian Onslaught, because, well, you don't have Skirk or Skofia, you were in for a world of pain against that thing. Although there are some, you know, 4-star only clears, courtesy of good players like DHCWSP instead of me, a Hyper Bloom spammer. Here we go. But basically, the reason why Layla is here is because she alone can apply enough cryo while also being completely, well, not completely, but mostly off field. And the way that this boss works is that it has massively enhanced resistances unless you deplete that little circle in the top right. And honestly, Genshin Impact has been obsessed with little circles for the bosses in the top right or whatever, or sorry, I guess in the bottom right of their health bars. And they still won't give us buff indicator timers for our buffs, but they're willing to give like pretty much every enemy we deal with a silly little circle that we have to deplete. But basically, you have to hit the enemy with a lot of cryo attacks, typically once more than 0.8 seconds. In Layla's case, she actually deals a lot of little instances of cryo damage with her elemental skill as well as elemental burst, which is why personally I really like Layla against the secret scam automaton. And then once you deplete its little circle thing, you can see its resistances go back down to a normal amount and you're able to deal with it. And it actually goes down to negative 40% cryo resistance, so if you do use cryo DPS characters, you are going to profit against it. So anyway, next we have the 12-1-2, which is standard overloaded team, and you deal with 3 of these Ikotomesauruses, which there's not much to say about them. Do they actually resist cryo? Interesting, huh? Hopefully I have the right enemy there. They don't look like they resist cryo. They kind of use their, like farting wind attacks where you go up in the air. Anyway, I'm yapping too much. We have the Wayward Hermetic Spirit Seeker next, who creates these cryo clones. You can see me seriously misplay here, and despite misplaying here, obviously, managed to clear this, and that will indicate kind of the difficulty level in comparison to some of the previous abysses that we've dealt with to date. But basically, this thing resists cryo a lot and is very vulnerable to pyro, because pyro will easily break those 3 clone things, and 3 or 4 clone things. And once you break the 4 clone things, she will just kind of sit on the ground for you to wail on her, to beat her up. And one thing about her is that she will kind of teleport to the clones to you, where you can kind of break, so you don't have to like chase them down too much, although sometimes chasing them down can help a little bit. But yeah, basically after that, she's mostly sitting duck, although you should probably dodge some of her attacks. I'm actually, for some reason, her attack patterns, I just really suck at dodging. But anyway, I'm actually battering the team up. You'll notice why I'm playing so passively, because we had plenty of extra time on the clock. I figured, hey, may as well use this to battery up the team for the next chamber, and cutting it a little close, so I'm like, okay, we better pop out Fischl's burst before we've actually failed a 3-star. Anyway, up next we have 12-2-1, and starting off, this chamber has very little interesting things going on. There's 3 waves, and there are 3 robots per wave, so very single target focused, with each wave of robots spawning one after the other. And if you know anything about robots, especially older robots, the older the robot, the higher the physical resistance. An interesting pattern there. The Ruin Grader has 70% physical resistance. The Ruin Drake Earth Guard has 50% physical resistance. And I guess more modern robots don't even have physical resistance these days. But yeah, anyway, I mean, very few people are using physical damage anyway these days, but in case you are, the Ruin Robot Guard things, are a bit not great for that. And yeah, so we can take a look here that the typical Hyper Bloom situation managed to take it out very easily. And the third robot, the Construction Specialist Mech here, has regular resistances and a decent amount of HP, but you can literally turn them into sitting ducks with freeze, as we can see here. And even in this case where freeze is a bit inconsistent thanks to the electro application, although Kuki doesn't apply that much electro, so actually freeze is pretty consistent, as you can see with here. And yeah, so basically just single target situation, one wave after the other. You can see my positioning a bit. I made it so that hopefully Collei's elemental burst would hit the next robot that spawns in. Anyway, up next we have 12-2-2. Starting off with this Aeromite guy who summons a Pokemon, one of the Pokemon trainers of all time, and this what is it called? Crocodile? This crocodile here will sometimes dash across the map, which really sucks if that happens, but other times it will just sit there like a good boy, at which point if you break it, the Aeromite will get crippled and lose resistances. You know the drill. I think it loses resistances, yeah. And anyway, then you can just obviously beat him up. I'm taking my time here actually for a bit of a reason, because that way I wanted all my cooldowns to be ready for the Y-Up. So burn all your elemental bursts right before the Y-Up uses its arena state, so that way you can do a lot of damage to that extra shield, which is basically just an HP shield. And once you break its shield thing, it will provide you a lot of energy and also get crippled for you to just wail on and to beat up. There are a couple other, strategies to deal with this thing, but this was kind of the one that I found most consistent, especially in this specific chamber, where you're not in like a huge rush to kill that one as fast as possible. Because up next you have two of these eroding avatar of lavas. They also have little circles, and unfortunately my camera is not showing their circles. There you go. They have little circles above their heads that you can fill. And the filling circle impact meta right now, that's really what Genshin Impact is lately. But basically, when you fill their circles by hitting them with pyro attacks, and surprisingly they don't resist pyro or any elements, but as you fill up the circle, it will lose some of its HP for every, like, I don't know, 20, 40, 60% of its HP. And if you completely fill up the circle, it just literally dies. So pyro is extremely effective against it for that reason. And up next we have 12-3-1, and this one was a little bit trickier. And for this, I actually went for the poise interrupt, and that way, the enemy actually won't go into arena if you can poise interrupt it in time. And you really don't want this one to go into its arena mode, the one on the left. You want to focus on the Geo one, because otherwise it will create a Geo shield, which is absolutely disastrous for most teams to deal with. And Geo shields, definitely being one of the better enemy shield types, I would say, because no one's really rocking much Geo damage unless you're like using Navi or something. But anyway, we managed to deal with that by actually freezing it, as well as, kind of smacking it with heavier poise with Xingqiu's double skill plus elemental burst. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but either way, the YOBs, they all work the same way. They create this arena with that HP, and then if you fail to break that secondary HP bar, which you can also just beat up the Geo one by, breaking its secondary HP bar shield, then it will gain an elemental shield where you have to break via traditional means. In this case, because we left the Electro one all alone, it had its Electro shield, but since it was so far away, it wasn't affecting us with its arena ability, so we were able to continue to use our burst and stuff. And then it came to us with the Electro shield, which you can see there that we broke. So up next we have a 12-3-2, and I actually waited a tiny bit to use Bennett's burst there, because otherwise it won't apply pyro, which is kind of awkward. And then the yummy sources will literally just jump over Bennett's burst, which is pretty funny. Are they called yummy sources? No, they're called Yumkasaurus. So I actually played this chamber extremely abhorrently, but the reason why I like including bad runs is because it will show you guys how much wiggle room you kind of have. And yeah, because if you're able to kind of 9-star this with bad runs, that means that, you should be able to do it with better runs, or, obviously better characters, better builds, etc., because, we're limiting ourselves to 4-star characters. So yeah, Overload, as you can see, Pyro, as you can see in the second half, absolutely fantastic. Although the Yummisaurus, the Kongamoto here, or the gluttonous Yumkasaurus Mountain King, as it's called in the Abyss, has 70% Dendro resistance, although it is not insurmountable by like a team like Kanish Burning. Obviously, pyro damage like Mavuika, Arlecchino, etc. will do fantastically in the second half. Overloaded, in my opinion. Absolutely fantastic for all the pyro application that the team has. In this case, we got a bit lucky because it actually didn't do its spin to win barbarian strategy immediately, and instead, I'm actually really messed up here. I should have used Fischl's burst right now instead of going for Chevreuse, but you can see, as I mentioned, not a perfect. Oh man, I'm getting my butt absolutely kicked here. But fortunately, we're able to deal with the Yumkasaurus and Mountain King regardless. And yeah, still getting beaten up here. But this thing just has a lot of HP, 5.6 million HP, as you can see. Resists a bit of Dendro. And you do want to blow up its fruit with pyro attacks, so that way it takes some damage. And yeah, that about does it. That is the 4-star only run for this Abyss 12. Okay, we have a quick day run, both side Abyss 12 speed run, and DHCWSP did indeed just upload this right as I was making this video. So we went ahead and copied most of his strategy, but unfortunately my account doesn't quite, there's something weird that goes on in one of the chambers that I can't quite pinpoint. But anyway, either way, this is, this actually was what I kind of had in mind when I saw this Abyss 12 in terms of the teams to utilize to speedrun. And it is just your cookie cutter Skirk team with Ayaka to help out with a couple of the extra waves, because, there's a lot of waves in this one. And I wasn't able to one-shot the second and third wave with Skirk's ultimate, so I just went with, the classic whack and thwack strategy. And for this one, this is a really sick strategy, and I actually really like the way that this part looks. But basically, Mavuika actually utilizes her motorcycle's mobility really well here. As you can see, she just kind of takes it out with her charge attacks, and then with the momentum of her second one hitting the, third wave. But anyway, next, this is where Ayaka is very helpful. Obviously, she can wipe out one of the enemies on one side, and Skirk can wipe out the other one with their elemental bursts. And finally, we have this chamber where, yeah, I think I did not need to use Mavuika's elemental skill there, so that was definitely some wasted time. Very unoptimized run, and feel free to take a look at, for example, DHCWSP's run for a much more optimized version of that. Okay, so let's take a look at some other, potential teams and stuff. For the top half, as long as you have something to deal with the cryo application for the secret scam automaton like Layla, or I guess if you want to on-field Chongyun, but I don't like on-fielding him because it takes, a lot of opportunity cost from the other characters. But yeah, you could do something like that. Of course, obviously, cryo characters like Risley, Skirk, etc. will be able to deal with its circle very, very easily. Or, multiple cryo characters like, for example, Ayaka plus Escoffier or something like that. Not an issue against the secret scam automaton, just apply a lot of cryo. Actually, Ayaka can deal with it herself. I don't know what I'm yapping about. But yeah, once you deal with the cryo gauge, literally any DPS character can take it out. Like, for example, I don't know, even Xiao can take it out if you run Layla on his team to deal with its cryo gauge. Although Xiao's single target DPS, I think it should be fine. Should be perfectly fine, especially with depending on his teammates. I don't know why I'm bullying Xiao. He doesn't deserve that. But up next, this as well, you just literally bring any damaging characters is fine. And finally, for this one, assuming you focus down one or the other, just make sure you have something to deal with the elemental shield of the other one. In this case, I highly recommend generally going after the Geo Wyob. First, it might create its arena, or you could see what I did. I used freeze as well as poise damage to kind of flinch it, so that way it wouldn't even initiate its arena at all. But once you kind of deal with the rock one, then just have something to break an electro shield, which, surprise, surprise, cryo does a great job at breaking electro shields for you. So that's just kind of the strategy for the top half. Literally, again, any DPS character can work as long as you have the cryo application necessary to deal with the boss's mechanics as well as this thing's electro shield. And the second half, Pyro is great, fantastic against it. Pretty much everyone should have Pyro characters. Everyone has Xiangling. Most people have Bennett, and a lot of people pull for Mavuika, so you guys are going to be eating good for the second half. In terms of some other strategies, I think some heavy Pyro appliers with DPS like Milani can do quite well. Milani can obviously just one-shot a lot of these things, or multiple hit a lot of these things. Just kind of depends on your Milani. I'm sure Kanish can brute force the Yum-Saurus, but he might struggle a bit because of the Yum-Saurus's 40% or 70% Dendro resistance. So yeah, Night Soul characters in the second half will do great as well, like Chaska with some Pyro will do fantastic. Obviously, you saw Overloaded do fantastic against these. Just make sure you have some Pyro to break this thing's, shades or whatever they're called. And yeah, Overloaded Varissa should do fantastically now that I think about it. Overloaded Chloron will do great as well. And that about wraps up this Abyss 12 video. Personally, I think this one was easier, and it was literally just a rerun of the previous Abyss, wanting, cryo on one side and then pyro on the other side. And we're going to see this trend continue, or pretty much end, I would say, with Natlin, in my opinion. Because they're gonna have to start selling the newer characters with the new mechanics, and they're likely going to include like one side that's pyro favorable or one side that's cryo favorable for some time as we get into the new meta in Nod Cry. But we're gonna have to see what happens, of course. And hopefully this Abyss 12 was a bit easier for you guys to clear compared to the previous one. And we also have some better buffs that are more universal than literally just Skirk and literally just Mavuika. So let me know what you guys think about this Abyss 12 down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys cleared this with, or if you're struggling with it. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.